Welcome to Gina's Table. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Gina Colburn, and I am the host of this podcast. Gina's Table is more than just a podcast. It's a vibrant community where people find their place and connect with others. So while you're here, imagine a cozy spot where you can share stories, ideas, all the while of savoring life together. It's a great place to be. So thanks for tuning in. Grab your favorite drink and join me at the table. You have value, you bring value to this table, and I am grateful you are here. This week, I want to share with you a story, kind of funny, kind of irritating, a whole lot annoying, and a little bit of frustration. But the good news about stories is the longer time that passes between them, you can usually find a little bit more humor. So I'm going to share a story and then tell you a little bit about what's coming up. In the weeks ahead, I plan to bring Jason back to the table as we talk about the importance of replanting our family tree. When we did our podcast on marriage several months ago, we've had lots of people ask, can you do another one? So I'm going to be bringing him back to the podcast. We're going to talk about the steps that we took, we continue to take to replant our family tree. And then I have a special guest that's going to be on the podcast. You are not going to want to miss it, but I'm not going to tell you who it is just yet. So stay tuned as there's going to begin to be some guests at the table. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait to experience it with you. But this week, a story. So this past weekend, Jason and I went to St. Louis, and we had been planning to go to St. Louis for a while with some friends of ours. Twofold, how the trip began to take place and in our thoughts and planning was going to concerts of legendary artists. So you could go and see them before, you can no longer see them, whether they quit touring or they were, well, you get the idea. So we decided we were going to buy tickets to the Outlaw Tour. Now, if you don't know what that is, it is Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, and John Mellencamp. Now, it's the 70s, 80s, and 90s. John Mellencamp is 71, 72. Bob Dylan, 81-ish, 82, I don't know. And Willie Nelson is 91. Crazy. I want to be him when I grow up, except, well, you get the idea. He's still traveling and doing concerts and singing for sold out crowds. And he starts his concerts at like 9 o'clock at night. It's crazy. But anyway, so that's how it started. We were going to go and to this concert. But then a friend of ours that lives here in the building works for the St. Louis Cardinals. And so we began to talk about, wouldn't it be fun to go to a Cardinals game? Now, for those of you who live in Kansas City, you go, no, that's not fun. But my first Major League Baseball game was with my dad and my sister probably close to 40 years ago at the St. Louis Cardinals, because where I grew up and born, you were a Cardinals fan. And my Granny Hayton was a die-hard Cardinals fan. And so obviously hadn't been to the new stadium. So we went down on Saturday and we went to the game, and the stadium is beautiful. You can see the arch, and the Cardinals won, which apparently they hadn't been doing. So I think that I must have been the reason they won. And the whole time I was there, I was just so reminiscent of my growing up years and being there with my dad. My favorite Major League Baseball player of all times is Ozzie Smith, and he happened to be there that night. And then just thinking of my Granny Hayton and how much she loved baseball. And so it was such a great, great evening, so fun to be there. It was beautiful weather. And then on Sunday, we went to the concert. And Jason and I knew that we had to be back Monday. Jason had a crazy day at work on Monday. So we were going to get up early Monday morning and drive back to Kansas City, which for those of you who don't know is about a 4-hour drive. So we got up about 6:30 and we're hurrying around, getting all of our stuff. And I'm driving home and we have a minivan and Jason's sitting in the back of the minivan with his laptop open and he's working and I'm driving. And when I get home, I have a meeting that I'm going to with the owners of the company that I work for. And so I come, rushing in and I'm getting ready. And then I'm like looking around and I'm like, where's my laptop bag? And then I left my laptop in the hotel in St. Louis. So I called the hotel and they're like, well, we'll put you through to housekeeping. And I left a message. And so then I left to go to my meeting and Jason's calling them and they're like, oh yes, we have it. We can mail that to you next week. Next week? This is Monday. You've got to mail it to me today. I'm like, no, our general manager is the only one allowed to ship these types of things and they won't be back until next week. And I'm like, oh no, what are we going to do? So when I got off work and Jason got off work on Monday, we drove back to St. Louis, 4 hours, to the hotel. Now, it was a DoubleTree. So when we got there, they gave us warm cookies. So nice. That is just what I wanted. And then we turned around and drove back to Kansas City and got home about 2 a.m. Now, that was 12 hours of driving that day, just back and forth to St. Louis. And the reason that I tell you this story is because let me tell you, I beat myself up all day long. I called myself an idiot. Like, how could you do this? You do not do things like this, Gina. You look, anytime we travel, I'm just super zoned in on making sure we don't leave anything. And this just became a tension, growing in me, what an idiot. And now Jason's already tired and work is stressful. And there's health issues with his mom. And now he's going to be more tired. And all the way there, it was just this tension. But in the middle of that, Jason and I put on some worship music. And we just began to worship. We began to just ask the Holy Spirit to fill our car, keep us awake. And even though we got home at 2 a.m. and we had to get up early the next day and do it all over again, we had just these few moments of experiencing and remembering who God is. So I don't know about you, but maybe you've had moments where you just forgot something, or you fill in the blank, where you beat yourself up and it takes time and money and energy and all those things. And you just need to be reminded that we aren't our worst day. We are not the sum of one bad decision. We are not the sum of a mistake that we made. And that God meets us in that frustration, in that annoying situation. And he says, I gotcha. And maybe we just needed that. Now, I would like to have learned those lessons without having to drive 12 hours. And I'm not really sure that I would say learn a lesson. It was just a reminder to me that God is in those moments, those unexpected, unplanned, ridiculous moments that we find ourselves in. And I am grateful that he was with us and he protected us and he kept us awake and we were able to get home. And while we don't really want to travel to St. Louis anytime in the near future, we are thankful for the weekend that we had to experience new things and just to be together. So I say all that to say this. You've got this. Whatever your day is like, whatever you're bringing to this table, maybe it's frustration with yourself, maybe it's frustration with your spouse or child or a sibling or a parent, or maybe it's frustration with God, that you can bring it to the table. And it's a good place to process it with people who love you, and more importantly, with the God of the universe who loves you the most. So thank you for being at Gina's table this week. I can't wait to see you here next week.